Hello, welcome back again. This is Emmanuel coming to you today with another edition of Financial Breakthrough Academy. I hope you've had a wonderful day, and today we want to tackle another important subject. Our subject today will be what we call the power of compound interest. The power of compound interest. Many of us may have either been acquainted with or we've come across, heard it before. We have never had a chance to really examine how it works, and today we want to be able to give us some insight on how compound interest works. So we want to get straight and get into the meat of our presentation. First of all, the scripture tells us, in fact, the Gospels mentions in Matthew 25, down in 27, Jesus, in the parable of the talent, he talks about in the statement, well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the banker so that when I return, I would have received it back with interest. That's very, very powerful. Jesus Christ showing the power of interest on money. He was obviously teaching a very important lesson in the parable, but using the context of finance and money to illustrate how interest works. So that is something important that we can be able to note here. Second, Albert Einstein is attributed with the statement and the quote that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Okay, so from this statement, again, I repeat, it says that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So it tells us that there are two sides to the coin when it comes to compound interest. You can either be earning it or you may be paying it. And obviously, we all want to be on the side of earning compound interest rather than paying compound interest. But either way, we just want to understand how compound interest works, what it is, and how we can be able to incorporate that in our financial education and financial planning. So the first thing to just understand and is basically to know what exactly is compound interest. So by definition, compound interest is said to be basically, compound interest is paid on the combined value of the original principal and interest that has been added to the principal while it was invested or on deposit. So again, compound interest simply means the concept of compound interest simply means that is the interest paid on the combined value of the original principal and any interest that has been added to the principal while it was invested or on deposit. Okay, so that gives us the definition of compound interest. Now, it's important to understand the difference between compound interest and simple interest. Okay, there is some difference there between, in fact, quite a difference between simple interest and compound interest. When we say simple interest, it's simply interest computed on only the principal, that is original amount invested or loan. On the other hand, compound interest combines both the principal and the interest. So that constitutes the main difference. Whereas simple interest is only computed on the principal that is originally invested or loan, compound interest combines both the principal and the interest. Very, very important to note in that definition distinction. So in effect, compound interest is like interest on interest. Is that right? When we talk about compound interest, we are simply illustrating or alluding to perhaps something like interest on interest. And that is a very powerful concept dealing with finances. And the key here is to be able to be in a place of what we call uninterrupted compound interest, where your money is continuously compounding, adding on, accumulating, building, increasing, month after month, year after year, over and over and over again. That is where you really want to be. That's where really wealth is eventually created and built over time. So the key here is to have compound interest working on your behalf in an uninterrupted fashion and uninterrupted manner. So that is very, very important. Now, without getting too techy, we are not so interested in, how the computation works behind the scenes. But for those of us that may be curious to know how it's computed, if you just take the computation of compound interest under the annual basis, it's said to be simply, Pn equals PV times 1 plus R to the nth power. Now, by definition, again, we are not so interested in all the big computations, but for those of us who want to understand the background, that is what the formula is. Pn simply meaning the value at the end of a certain period. Okay, P being the present or beginning value, are representing interest, and n number of periods. So if you want to compute compound interest, say Pn at any particular time in the period, you take the present value, whatever the amount at the beginning of the time, you multiply that by 1 plus the interest rate to the nth power. In other words, the number of periods that is being actually worked on. So that is just, mathematical formula for those of us who are interested to know how the portion works. But here is a quick case study. We have, for example, Mrs. Johnson, age 35, who has $10,000 to invest with an interest rate of about 5%, and she hopes to keep the money in there for the next, say, 30 years. Is that right? So how would that look like in terms of how compound interest will work on her behalf? So if we take that scenario as just a quick example, we'll get something to the effect of what you have on the screen. Okay, so you take the same formula we just illustrated over 30-year period, $10,000 first principal amount, original beginning amount, on that second column on your screen there, and taking a constant interest rate of, say, 5%. On the third column, the next column representing the amount of interest that will be earned on that money on a yearly basis. So the first year, 5% of that 10,000 gives us $500. So you take that $500 and you add it on the original amount, 10,000. That will give us at the end of the year a total amount of 10,500. So the next year, year 2, on the screen there, you find that $500 that was earned as interest is added to the original amount, the first amount, the seed amount, the principal amount of 10,000 to begin the year of 10,500. So on that, Mrs. Johnson earns another 5% of that total amount. That's the amount at the beginning plus the interest that has been earned in the previous year. You add it to it, you compute the 5%, that gives us 525. So at the end of the year, we have that amount computed back to Mrs. Johnson, having now $11,025. So that scenario repeats itself year after year. So we have a repetition of that scenario year after year. And over the years, you'll find that to the end of the 30 year, you'll find that Mrs. Johnson, at the end of 30 years, would have accumulated her amount that began at 10,000 would have grown, compounded, accumulated to well over $43,239 and some change. Is that right? So that is the kind of computation that you want to have, about 43,000 and some change there. So again, compound interest working on your behalf the screen given as an example will be a powerful tool to help in building and accumulating wealth. That is basically the concept we wanted to share today. And just as we say all the time, for us to be able to make sure we're on the right side of the equation, we should be earning rather than paying this interest. That the same thing works on one side. If you were to be paying the interest, maybe on some kind of a loan that you have or something, it will be going against your wealth. It's something that will eat up, especially credit card debt is one of the biggest, I'll say, absorbers or killers of wealth. Using the same principle of compound interest, it will eat into what is supposed to be working on our behalf. So that brings us to our session today, talking simply on the concept of compound interest, how we can be able to allow interest to work on our behalf year after year, compounding and building up, creating wealth on our behalf. Again, we want to just share that we have going on now here in the Denver metro area. Those who are in the metro area, we have an upcoming event next week, 18th and 19th, 6:30, how to get out of debt seminar, free seminar, and we invite you to join us. If you're in the Denver metro area, come learn and share some ideas on building and creating wealth. To contact us before then, we have 720-580-9717, or go online, EliasonConsulting.com/financial planning to start your financial planning portfolio. Be happy to help you start up that journey on your own. Again, it's been a pleasure working with you today, and look forward to talking to you again soon. God bless the rest of your day.